Welcome to Capital Catch-Up, your deep dive into the latest action from the halls of Congress. I am Victor.
And I am Lainey. Today we are walking you through a series of newly introduced bills, key committee meetings, and resolutions that cover everything from tax relief and healthcare reform to consumer rights and national defense.
Let us start with a group of bills designed to protect taxpayers in very specific and sometimes extreme circumstances. First up is House Resolution 9496, the End Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act.
This bill focuses on providing financial relief to United States nationals who are unlawfully or wrongfully detained or held hostage abroad. It proposes an amendment to the Internal Revenue Code to postpone tax filing and payment deadlines for these individuals and their spouses during their detention.
Right, and it also suspends the accrual of interest and penalties during that time. It sets up a formal coordination process between the Department of the Treasury, the Department of State, and the Attorney General to identify these individuals and issue refunds or abatements for any late fees already assessed. It is all about removing that administrative burden from families already dealing with a crisis.
Speaking of tax relief, House Resolution 9500, the Tax Relief for Fraud Victims Act, takes aim at personal casualty and theft losses. It repeals existing limitations on personal casualty loss deductions and gives taxpayers more flexibility to claim theft losses involving fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation.
Yes, and under this bill, victims can choose which taxable year to report the loss. It also extends the statute of limitations for filing related refund claims and allows penalty-free distributions from retirement accounts to help victims recover. Interestingly, it even includes specific provisions for homeowners dealing with foundation damage caused by the mineral pyrrhotite.
That is a very specific but critical detail for affected homeowners. Now, to prevent fraud before it happens, we have House Resolution 9499, the Protecting Taxpayers from Ghost Preparers Act. This bill expands penalties for tax preparers who improperly alter client returns. It clarifies the definition of a tax return to include various filings and documents so fraudulent preparers can be held accountable.
It also protects taxpayers from extended assessment periods in cases of preparer fraud and makes a technical correction to the Disaster-Related Extension of Deadlines Act.
And to help enforce tax integrity, House Resolution 9501, the AI Tax Integrity Act of 2026, proposes a pilot program where the Secretary of the Treasury would use artificial intelligence to detect tax fraud.
This pilot would target identity theft, fraudulent claims, and improperly prepared returns. It is mandated to operate for 18 to 24 months, after which the Comptroller General must submit a report to Congress evaluating how effective the artificial intelligence was at identifying and recovering improper refunds.
Rounding out the tax administration bills is House Resolution 9498, the Taxpayer Advocate Participation Act. This would amend the Internal Revenue Code to give the National Taxpayer Advocate the legal authority to appear as amicus curiae, or a friend of the court, in federal tax cases.
For our listeners who might not be familiar with that term, an amicus curiae is someone who is not a party to a case, but offers information or expertise to assist the court. This bill would require federal courts to grant these applications, ensuring the advocate can present expert perspectives on issues that impact taxpayer rights broadly.
Moving on to healthcare and consumer protection. House Resolution 9502 is the Protect Seniors and Veterans from Healthcare Fraud Act of 2026. It requires the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to establish a data-sharing memorandum of understanding with the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
This two-year agreement will allow reciprocal access to enrollment and billing information between the Veterans Health Administration and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The goal is to eliminate duplicative, improper, or erroneous payments for veterans who are concurrently enrolled in Veterans Affairs healthcare and programs like Medicare, Medicaid, or Medicare Advantage. The Veterans Affairs Department will also have to submit biennial reports to Congress on their progress.
There is also House Resolution 9504, the Tax-Exempt Hospital Transparency Act. This bill introduces major reporting requirements for tax-exempt hospitals to increase financial accountability. They will have to disclose detailed information regarding community health needs assessments, financial assistance policies, and audited financial statements.
And for larger, high-revenue hospitals, they will have to itemize spending on quality improvement, non-clinical programming, specific health service lines, and their participation in the federal 340B drug discount program. Plus, the Government Accountability Office will study the administrative costs of these requirements and estimate what these hospitals would owe in taxes if they were not tax-exempt.
On the consumer safety side, we have House Resolution 9528, the People Over Poison Act. This bill amends the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act to clarify that federal regulations do not preempt or limit an individual's right to pursue state-level tort claims regarding pesticide labeling and packaging. It has been referred to the Committee on Agriculture.
This is a significant procedural point because it ensures federal law is not used as a barrier to block citizens from holding manufacturers accountable under state law for health or safety issues.
Another major consumer rights bill is House Resolution 9462, the Investor Choice Act of 2026. This bill aims to protect retail investors by prohibiting mandatory pre-dispute arbitration agreements in the securities industry. It amends the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, the Securities Act of 1933, and the Investment Advisors Act of 1940.
Right, many financial institutions currently include clauses in their contracts that force investors to resolve disputes through arbitration rather than the court system. This bill would render those existing mandatory arbitration clauses void for future disputes, allowing investors to choose between arbitration and court litigation, including participating in class action lawsuits.
Now let us talk about some of the honorary and commemorative measures introduced. House Resolution 9505 is the Bonnie Eloise Rush Milam Congressional Gold Medal Act of 2026. It proposes posthumously awarding a Congressional Gold Medal to Bonnie Eloise Rush Milam.
Milam founded the Melody Maids in 1942, an all-girls singing group that provided entertainment and morale support to United States service members across multiple global conflicts, including World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. The medal would eventually be housed at the Terrell Historical Library in Beaumont, Texas, for public research and display.
We also have House Resolution 1394, which formally condemns prosecution policies in sanctuary jurisdictions that allegedly grant preferential treatment to foreign nationals over United States citizens. The resolution calls for the full prosecution of all criminals, regardless of immigration status, and supports Department of Justice investigations into these local practices.
And House Resolution 1397 expresses support for designating June 28, 2026, as Community is Stronger Than Cancer Day, highlighting the role of community support for patients, survivors, and caregivers.
A few other bills were introduced without detailed summaries yet, but are worth noting. House Resolution 9461, the Working Families Home Construction Act of 2026, House Resolution 9497, the Water Resources Development Act of 2026, and House Resolution 9451, the SABRE Act of 2026.
Let us turn our attention to the schedule for committee meetings. On June 29, 2026, at 8 p.m. Coordinated Universal Time, the House Rules Committee is scheduled to meet to consider several key measures.
For our listeners, the Rules Committee is often called the gatekeeper of the House because it establishes the rules and parameters for how bills are debated and amended on the House floor. At this meeting, they will consider House Resolution 8800, which is the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2027.
They will also look at House Resolution 8884, the Removing Barriers to Work for Disabled Americans Act, as well as House Resolution 1383, which commemorates the one-year anniversary of the enactment of the Working Families Tax Cuts. Finally, they will discuss House Resolution 8595, the National Security, Department of State and Related Programs Appropriations Act, 2027.
Following that, on June 30, 2026, at 2 p.m. Coordinated Universal Time, the House Financial Services Committee is scheduled to meet to discuss various measures.
As we wrap up today's episode, what should our listeners watch out for next?
Keep an eye on how the House Rules Committee shapes the upcoming debates on the National Defense Authorization Act and the State Department appropriations. Also, watch for further action on the Investor Choice Act and the various tax integrity bills as they move through their respective committees.
That is all for today's edition of Capital Catch-Up. Thank you for listening.
See you next time.